You are listening to Film vs. Analytics, a Fantasy Points podcast where each day we discuss a new rookie based on the Dynasty ADP, battling them out, Film vs. Analytics. I'm your host, Brett Whitefield, the film expert. I will be joined by Scott Barrett, the analytics GOAT. We are Fantasy Points.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
All right, guys, remember, if you're interested by the things you hear today, be sure to check out the Fantasy Points YouTube channel, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Also, head over to fantasypoints.com to check out my 2025 prospect guide and Scott Barrett's rookie model articles. You pretty much get everything you hear in these episodes. You get in written form in those two publications there, so make sure you check those out. Today, we are talking Michigan tight end Colston Loveland. You think we're going to debate? I don't. I think I already conceded that Tyler Warren's a better player on the last.
Oh, another concession from Brett. What am I, 20 for 20 right now?
Because I already had that take going in. You didn't convince me of anything.
I want another debate. I'm the best. Another L for Brett.
These are
off in the comments.
These are both top 10, top 12 prospects for me. I'm not looking at my big board right this second, but I know I have them both way up there. Why don't you start us off? Tell us a little bit about Colston Loveland and what you like.
Yeah. So high school senior, was Idaho Gatorade Player of the Year, freak on both sides of the ball. Freshman, he was stuck behind a round 2 and a round 4 tight end, but he broke out in the following season ahead of AJ Barner, another NFL tight end who went in round 4. Was nearly the team's number 1 receiver that year, just barely behind Roman Wilson, who went in round 3. We all know Michigan went undefeated that year, so that really impressive feat for young player on a elite, all-time great college team. The next year, no JJ McCarthy, no Harbaugh. Michigan had a 100th percentile strength of schedule. They were awful. They were just so bad. But Loveland was amazing. Historically great year. Unfortunately, when Michigan is this bad, all we really have to lean on is market share metrics, and his market share metrics are insane. He had a 34.7% yardage market share. It's the most by any power conference tight end in at least 15 years. Impossibly, he did this despite missing 3 games. Like, that is so hard to have a stat like that when you miss 3 games. So if you factor that in, 39.2% yardage market share would have been the second best of any power conference tight end in at least 45 years. We're going back to the Vietnam War for this stat. But the thing is, let's look at those 3 games where Loveland didn't play. Michigan averaged 56 passing yards per game. In the games he played, 151. They were 3 times more productive with this guy. You look at what they were doing with JJ McCarthy, it was somewhere between 220 to 250 passing yards per game. Last year, if you exclude just passes that went to Colston Loveland, they averaged only 84 passing yards. Awful offense. Minus him, who was a freak and a star. By yards per route run, only Brock Bowers beat him out 2 years ago. Only Tyler Warren beat him out last year. It was really close, 2.77 yards per route run versus 2.67. That becomes even more impressive when you factor in Penn State for Warren was over 50% more efficient on a per drop back basis. So again, factor in the context of the offense. But those were all-time great yards per route run seasons, ranking 7th, 17th best this past decade. Bowers is the only other tight end with more than 1 season inside the top 20. By targets per route run, this is another crazy stat. 0.376 targets per route run last year. That is the second most of any power conference player since 2016. The only player ranking above him was Drake London in 2021. So you look at this player, you see, PPR cheat code potential. I think when we talked Warren, you're like a guy with, 120 catch upside, where you're talking about really only like the Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce's of the world. And yeah, you see that. I saw analytically very rich man Sam LaPorta, where it was very much the same thing, where it's, you have these uber elite market share metrics. You don't really have the raw counting stats just because the offense is so bad. But this is a player I love. You heard me. I really like Tyler Warren, but Loveland is behind him, but just right behind him. And like tight end premium league, yeah, I would take these two guys over any wide receiver not named Ted McMillan. I think it's a legitimate debate whether to take these guys over Ted. Then even outside of tight end premiums, like do I like Loveland more than Luther Burden, more than Emeka Egbuka, more than Matthew Golden? Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for making me relive Michigan's 2024 season, dude. I swear Army and Navy had more competent passing offenses than what they put on the field last year. Quarterback play was probably the worst I've ever seen in college football. So thank you for that.
Well, you won the Natty the year before that. So
won the Natty the year before, and sacrifices were made for sure. Also, slight clerical fix here.
Oh.
3 draftable tight ends he played behind in 2022. Eric All, who was a 4th-round pick by the Cincinnati Bengals. AJ Barner, who transferred in the year after, and then Luke Schoonmaker.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying AJ Barner barely played that freshman year, but then he was still on the team the next year, and it was Loveland who was the tight end one. But yeah, so 3 NFL caliber tight ends.
Yeah, so I'm just saying he produced despite being surrounded by other very good tight ends who actually Barner's getting legit playing time in Seattle. He's a starter already. Schoonmaker hasn't really cracked Dallas's lineup yet, but he's a 2nd-round pick. So very fascinating on that front. Yeah, dude, Loveland can ball. It's no surprise. I see a guy. I think when we juxtapose him to a Tyler Warren, I see a better route runner. I see a separatist. We love ass, right, Scott? Like we love ass. And I think the trait that if you're going to make an argument for Loveland over Warren, I'm not making that argument to be clear, but if you're going to, it starts with those separation skills. I labeled him as the preeminent pass catching weapon in this draft. I think that's what he is. Really flexible lower half too. Like he can really sink and explode. Doesn't have any tells in his route running, which for tight ends, that's hard, man. Real consistency in his arm, his dip. There's no, all of his penetration steps are great. Like he really detailed player with the route tree. So I really love him from a separation standpoint. He has equivalent ball skills to Tyler Warren as well. Warren might be a little bit better at the catch point because he's stronger and kind of has that attitude about him. But I love Loveland. He also has experience in a pro style scheme as a blocker. I think that's important. We mentioned it on the Warren show. Like Warren is a plus player in the run game, where I think Loveland isn't necessarily there, but he's going to know what to expect at the NFL level coming from that Michigan offense. And that's a big deal. I think he gets on the field right away, just like I think Warren does. There's really not a ton of, like, we could nitpick his profile, and like I think he could be a little better after the catch. You don't see a lot of explosiveness there. That's where Warren really laps the field, by the way, is that run.
I mean, Zach Ertz forced 3 missed tackles in his entire career.
Right.
If he's as elite as a route runner as you're saying, it might not matter that much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is nitpicky, and I'm kind of also just trying to, create a pathway to a clear thought process behind Warren being tight end 1, I guess, too. I think, that's an area where Warren truly does lap him is the run after catch stuff, because Warren's going to give you that Kittle explosiveness. You can hit him with, as long as you're getting him the ball early and in stride. Warren is a monster to bring down, where Loveland's not really that guy, which is okay. It's fine. It's just, I'll take Warren in that regard. So, yeah, I actually comped him to Sam LaPorta. So you mentioned him as a rich man, Sam LaPorta. I totally see that. Sam LaPorta is a great route runner, excellent separator, which is ironic because Ben Johnson has schemed up so many walk-in touchdowns for LaPorta where he's really had to do nothing, like on trick plays and stuff. But, yeah. Loveland's a dude, man. So we don't really have to debate much here.
I've heard some negative comps to Dalton Kincaid. Can you speak to that? Do you see that at all?
No. Dalton Kincaid was a massive injury risk in coming out of college. He's a very uninspiring athlete. I don't see that with Loveland at all. So
what about blocking? Is blocking comparable?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit. No, he's a better blocker than Kincaid.
Yeah.
He is not Tyler Warren as a blocker, though.
Yeah.
I think where he really thrives as a blocker is in space and on the move. That's where you see that athleticism pop. I mentioned on the Warren show, Loveland was used a lot as that split flow blocker in zone. He's effective on that. He's effective getting to the second level. But yeah, we're not leaving him as the point of attack blocker on outside or wide zone. We're just not, like, that's not where Loveland's at yet. And you know what? LaPorta's not a very good blocker either. LaPorta's better in space than he is at the point of attack. So I very much see this comp. So
when I think about Dalton Kincaid, it's like, as a blocker, he does not strike fear into your heart in the run game as a sixth offensive lineman at all. Like, he doesn't really change the equation for a defense. And then as a pass catcher, okay, he could be a big slot, but he's like still not as good of a slot wide receiver as Khalil Shakir. So if you're going to put a cornerback on him, like, better off just having Shakir out there. And that's why we saw his playing time dip and he hasn't become a fantasy difference maker. Obviously, the dream is a Zach Ertz in his prime, a Travis Kelce in his prime, a Brock Bowers, a Trey McBride, who are guys who, like, you just call them a slot wide receiver. They're up there with the best slot wide receivers in football. Yeah. Do you see that with Loveland, either like in the immediate or long-term upside?
No, he's an every down tight end.
Okay. Yeah. So he's that good of a block. Okay. So then, yeah.
He's passable enough as a blocker to be an every down tight end. Which, if I didn't say it at the top, my apologies. I thought
like that's the most. Maybe you did, but like that's the most. I feel like that's the most important thing these days. Like, we tried the Mike Gesicki experiment, we tried the Kyle Pitts experiment, we tried the Dalton Kincaid experiment, and so you either have to be like a very well-rounded tight end who is a plus as a blocker, while also being strong as a pass catcher, than the other archetype.
Yeah, and all those guys have their own unique wrinkles. Like, I always said Kyle Pitts should have been an X receiver, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
Like, should lose a little bit of weight and make him an X receiver. I think that's where that vertical route tree where he's not going to be asked to block at the point of, like, that's where he would thrive.
We owe Arthur Smith an apology too, because like that's how he was using him before the injury. And, the route share was low, and, I'm like, what is this? But it makes sense. You look at his weaknesses. And Jonnu Smith getting all the playing time, and Jonnu Smith goes crazy last year in Miami. Man, we owe Arthur Smith an apology.
Yeah, especially, like, not to beat a dead horse here, but Jonnu's career arc was funny because he left Tennessee for a bunch of money in New England. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
like, he was the first or second highest paid tight end for a couple of years, and then Bill Belichick just didn't know what to do with him, right? So then he goes to Atlanta, kind of breaks out, and then broke out again last year in Miami. So, anyways, yeah. Good stuff. Loveland's good. Dynasty, you what? Top 6 pick for you? Top 7 pick for you in Dynasty?
Yeah, right there. Right behind Warren. Again, I like these tight ends. Yeah, these tight ends are probably my wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 in the class, or 3 and 4 if Travis Hunter is a wide receiver. But yeah,
cool.
Ideal landing spot.
It's kind of the same as Warren to an extent. Like, I think because of the Sam LaPorta comp, obviously Chicago makes some sense. I'd love to see him in Indianapolis. From a football standpoint, that would suck for fantasy. For one, they already have a lot of mouths to feed. For two, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones collectively can't hit the broadside of a barn. So
I'm going to give you 2 as that only works as a trade up. I mean, the Harbaugh connection.
For sure.
Greg Roman loves tight ends.
Yeah.
And then the other one, Denver, potential joker.
They just did Ingram, though, who's kind of that joker type. So
yeah, I mean, it wasn't a ton of money, and like, Loveland is just such a massive upgrade on a 30-something-year-old Ingram.
Yeah,
he's always hurt, but yeah.
I'm not saying it's
Rams. What about the Rams? Rams tried desperately to trade out for Bowers.
I have a mock, not my most recent one, the one before that. I had the Rams trading up to get Loveland, I think, at 14 overall.
That's the thing. I think all the really sexy teams would have to trade up.
Baltimore's another one too, if they, because there's a chance they move on from Andrews because of the money. I could see them trading Andrews to the Chargers, if, for example, and then coming up for
that's
Loveland.
A good call.
So that'd be interesting. But all right, let's get out of here, man. Thanks for sticking with us. We will be back.